so I can capture your attention. I can start training you inside of my philosophies so that when you get to the point where you're my ideal customer, I don't have to teach you all the principles that you need in order to scale and grow. You're already inside of my framework. So because you're inside of my framework, now you're at a point where you can keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And I can pretty much assure myself I'm going to get a return on the capital I inject into you.
Welcome to the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast, the ultimate destination for accredited investors and entrepreneurs seeking alternative wealth-building strategies. Discover how to fast-track your journey to wealth and time freedom by thinking outside the box. If you're ready to join the ranks of the Contrarian Capitalists and learn the most effective ways to reach your financial goals faster, you're in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast.
Thank you once again for listening to another episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast. I am your host, aka your favorite silverback, Sylvania Harrod. And on today's episode, I'm going to share with you some insights from a gentleman who goes by the name of Dan Martell. I'll let you know a little bit of the behind the scenes of what his process is and how he's able to do it and how you are able to implement those same strategies into what you're doing today. So Dan Martell, New York Times bestselling author of a book called Buy Back Your Time. I love the name of his title. I love the content that he talks about for the most part, like just like anything else, nobody's all good, nobody's all bad. So, but Buy Back Your Time is a very interesting thesis for me. And the reason why I call things theses is because in the end of the day, as a business owner or entrepreneur, you're at a place where you are a scientist. So a scientist always starts with a hypothesis. You take a hypothesis and then you go ahead and you test that hypothesis. The way it turns from a hypothesis or thesis into something that is a known principle is that if you can implement it in multiple different areas and you get the desired output, then take ownership of it. So it's the same thing in life. Like if somebody gives me a different way of thinking or a different paradigm, I'm going to take it, I'm going to test it. If it works for me, great. Okay, that's first step. Then I'm going to see if I can have it work in other elements. If I have it work in other elements, then cool. I take ownership of it. I hold it true. So like one of my things is always be learning, because I firmly believe that there is no end road. If you're on this journey and being able to do things, there's always an opportunity to learn. And I've tested it in multiple different ways. So how does that relate to buy back your time? Well, the key thing that I've learned in just business and working around different level tiers of operators is that time is the most precious resource in the world. You cannot create it. So if you can't create it, more of it, you can't waste it. Like really? Like people, you're wasting your time. Like I can't do it. The time's just going to keep moving regardless of what I do. The other thing is that your perception of time speeds up as you get older. So as you keep getting older, being able to do things, you realize because time moves faster. So in Buy Back Your Time, what he talks about is how you need to begin to remove yourself out of certain tiers of operations and bring in people who are better than you in particular roles. And I know that to be true, that the most successful companies that I've had the opportunity of working for and working with believe in the same concept. So, but what is the real thing that is behind Mr. Martell? So now, I bet you don't know this, but Dan Martell, he talks about it in some elements, but for the average person, they don't realize that Dan Martell owns a venture capital fund. It's called High Speed Ventures. So the venture capital fund is a structure inside of private equity. Your thesis is based upon what phase of business you're looking to buy in private equity. So Dan's thesis is right around $1 million ARR. So as we look at that, he typically focuses on SaaS companies. So he's looking at SaaS companies and he's looking to hit them in that phase where they're normally going, so up to about $1 million in ARR or annual recurring revenue. A software company is normally funded by angel investors. So those are called pre-seed rounds. So they'll go to angel, they'll go to friends and family. They may even do the term what's called bootstrapping, which is just grabbing your own money and pouring it into it, because they're at a phase where they're like, I really believe in this, and they don't know the art of using OPM yet. Why they start using OPM is what's called a raise. So as they're going through and they're like, Angel, here's this, here's what we're gonna need. We're gonna go through it. So the first phase, it goes through like A, B, and C. Series A will be like, hey, I'm just looking to get more investors to be able to go in there because we hit product market fit at 1 million. We're gonna go Series A, and that's normally where venture sits, because they're like, hey, if we can help you scale and we can help you grow, we're going to get a larger piece of the pie. The thing about venture is it's all about odds. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take and I'm going to inject $1 million into 100 companies. I expect 1 to go to the moon, 4 to make me a full return on the 100 mil I borrowed, and 95 are probably going to falter and may not get to where it needs to be. It's just the law of averages from there. But it's very high risk, very high reward. So what can Mr. Martell assure for the different clients he wants? He can help them understand the basic principles that they can take and implement into their company to go through that process. That's why he wrote the book. That's why he has the podcast. That's why he's doing that, because what he's doing is recognizing, I guarantee he recognizes that capital is infinite, but attention is limited. So if I can capture your attention, I can start training you inside of my philosophies so that when you get to the point where you're my ideal customer, I don't have to teach you all the principles that you need in order to scale and grow. You're already inside of my framework. So because you're inside of my framework, now you're at a point where you can keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And I can pretty much assure myself I'm going to get a return on the capital I inject into you. The other thing that ends up happening is that as I do that, I can prime you for what I know, which is going to be the next bite of your company, which is either private equity is going to come in and want to inject stuff into you or buy you, because wealth is made in exits. That's how big dollars are made. It's not normally in running the company. It's about when you sell it and you have a large liquidation event. This is why companies go public, because they're like, oh, we're going to have a large liquidation event. We're going to have a bunch of people that are going to go and buy these shares, and I'm either going to leave or I'm going to stay here. But now I have a different resource of capital to be able to do it, because it's another principle of using other people's money, aka OPM. So Dan helps through those different phases because he's gone through the process of selling and exiting his companies 3 times. So he saw at one moment, damn, as a chess player, as a chess piece. So I'll use an analogy of calling a chess tournament. So in the chess tournament, you have the chess room, you have chess players, you have chess pieces. So as a chess piece, which Dan was, he was running operations, running sales, running different things to be able to be there, building it up, until a chess player came in and said, good job, well done, I'm going to buy you. And he got his money and went off. After the first time, you start realizing, hold up, I'm selling my company for 30 mil, but I'm only taking 3 mil of this. Who the hell's taking all the other cuts? You realize you have other people and other steps that have grabbed much larger chunks. So you hear about the $30 million exit. What you never hear about is how much he actually took home of that exit. We celebrate the exit, but we don't know how much debt and how much other things they had, how many other investors they had with different percentages. So typically, one of the lowest percentage people when it comes to getting that is going to be the founder, because they just don't understand the art of leverage yet. Now, Dan understands this because he's done it 3 times. So now he's like, yeah, I'm going to ensure I take the larger chunk of the pie when this moment happens, which is why he built his own personal brand. He built his own structure to go through with that. So what can you do yourself to take the same strategies to help you get your own fund? Well, similar to Dan, you have to get to a place where you have your war chest. Go ahead and build it. Build your business, build your structure, go through it. Have the patience to understand that you don't need $100 million today. Maybe you do if you have the skill already. Only you know exactly what it is. I relate it towards, I grew up in an area in New Jersey where I would see 16, 17-year-old kids get 400, 500 horsepower cars for the first car. And you go, oh my goodness, that kid's going to end up wrapped around a tree because they don't have the skill required to drive all of the power that is in that vehicle. It's a beautiful thing about Tesla. You can tone it down when you got your kids driving different cars. Because while it may seem like a great in theory, that's the reason why insurance premiums are so damn high for it to be able to do that kind of stuff. So how does that relate to business? If I go ahead and inject a lot of capital and your foundation isn't set, it's no different than somebody winning the lottery. Why do most people who win the lottery end up being broke within 5 to 10 years? They ain't got no foundation, bruh. So ensure you're building the foundation. That's the basis of this podcast. Is to give you those foundational elements, these little piece of nuggets as you're going through the day by day. If you have these foundational pieces, which is going to come down to leadership, understand leadership. Understand that you need to remove yourself out of certain situations. The ego tells us we want to control everything. We have to be in charge. We have to be the man. We have to be the MVP. However you want to frame it. But the real smart people are the ones who realize, I know what I'm good at. This is my zone. I damn sure know what I'm not good at, and I'm not going to do those things. And as you look at that, you can start building structures and you start moving from a face of being a chess piece to you can get inch closer to being the chess player. And as you're the chess player and you start understanding those structures and you go through that phase, now you're getting closer to being the owner of the building that the chess tournament is operating inside of. So know yourself. Know what you're good at. Know what you suck at. And so there's a lot of different talks, but I'll tell you what the principle that is for me, because I've tested with different theses, is that it is 10 times harder to take a level 4 skill and bring it to a level 8 skill than taking a level 8 skill and bringing it to a level 10 skill. Know your skills. Know where you're good at. And while you can make micro improvements in the other areas, the best companies, the best businesses, hire somebody who is a level 8, 9 in that area that you're the weakest. Because as you have that, you're building structure, you're building diversity of thought, you're building a solid foundation into your business that allows you to scale and grow. Once you're there and you've really developed your thesis of where you would spend your 100 million, it takes time. It's going to take time to be able to be there. You're going to see, you're going to do it. Every week I talk to clients and I go, and one of the questions I ask them is that if I pour $100 million in your business right now, what would you do with it? And they go, and then my response is, give it to, that question is targeted for you to answer over the course of the next month. Because right now, your paradigm is not shaped for that. Right now, your paradigm is shaped for today problems. Because you're constantly, as a firefighter, out there solving challenges, be able to be there. But if you know where you want to go in 3 years, then you can zoom out of the situation and get back to a place where you can actually dream, where you can actually marinate. You may actually go like, I sure as hell wouldn't do it here because I can't do that much. Your framework starts changing and start thinking of things from a little bit. And this is called crossing the chasm, the chasm between business operator and investor. You start looking at things differently to be able to be there. And so by buying back your time, as Dan Martell, you start having the freedom to really ponder these type of items, of knowing the trajectory of what the business is going to do over the next 5 years and implementing the necessary steps Day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to ensure you end up on your routine destination. And so I want you to marinate on that. If you're currently operating inside of a business that's taken up day by day, zoom out. Take a day, ponder, go through it. Ask yourself that question. I had 100 mil that was thrown into my lap. What would I actually do? And so for one of those clients that I remember talking to, they go and they say, you know what? I actually really do like what I have. I would just acquire more things. I would get more staff. I would be able to build those structures. I could be able to really grow and go national. And that's when I go, well done. You thought about it properly. Okay. Now, my job for my firm is to actually dig into the details and get the granular spots to be able to be there and do that strategy, because we sit there and do this all day long. So that's our objective, is that we can help you dream. We can only dream with you and show you the necessary steps in order to be there, because this is what we do. So if I look at Dan Martell and I look at that process and I look at that, one, buy back your time. Spend some time pondering. Put an hour in your calendar just over the course of the next week and see, what do I actually really want? And you can ask yourself the 4 questions that I always ask. If anything were possible in the next 3 years, what would you be doing? Who would you be serving? How much do you want to make? And how much time do you want to do? All that makes it all possible, because my job is not to tell you what to dream. It's to teach you how to dream and go through that. So you can take the same strategy, use it, implement it into your business, and test it. Because guess what? For all you know, I could be wrong. The thesis may not work for you. But I'm willing to bet. If it is wrong, ping me. Tell me how it's wrong. Let's get on a call. Let's have that discussion point. I'm always open to be able to be there, kind of like Ocho Cinco. Rule number 1, stay grateful, my friends. I deeply appreciate you. And I'm here to serve you, because that's my job as a leader, is to give you the information you need to ensure you end up in the destination that you choose to be at. As always, you can find me on all social media platforms. At Sylvania Harrod is my handle. And I'm truly grateful for this episode and for being able to serve you. So as always, stay grateful, and on to the next episode. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review on your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more people ready to explore contrarian investment strategies. Stay connected with us on social media for more expert insights, behind-the-scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes. You can find all the links in the show notes. Until next time, stay bold, think differently, and keep pursuing the legacy you deserve. Thanks for listening to the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast.